Teofimo Lopez joining Team Canelo, that's what it looks like. I'm seeing multiple leaks of, I don't want to say leaks, that's a little dramatic, right? But there's a lot of videos floating around social media of Teofimo and Canelo putting work in together with Eddie Reynoso, and it looks good. It's good work, and it looks like Canelo's helping Teofimo out, making little tweaks in his game, and that's a cool thing to see. As you know how the sport of boxing is. A lot of fighters don't like to give away any of their tricks, stuff like that. But Teofimo Lopez and Canelo Alvarez both share something in common. You know, they're both kind of in talks with like Terence Crawford. They're both guys that, you know, Canelo's considered too big for Terence Crawford, and then Teofimo Lopez is considered too small. But there have been talks about both fights. Teo wants to fight Terence Crawford. Terence wants to fight Canelo. So it's an interesting little staircase, power dynamic going on here in the sport of boxing. But you guys know me. You guys know that Benavidez and Canelo is ultimately the fight that I wanted to see for Canelo Alvarez specifically. But if we can't get that, I wouldn't be mad at Terence Crawford in the mix. In a Canelo fight, it's a big risk, but it's also something that Terence Crawford has been very intent on. If it was like he didn't mention Canelo Alvarez, it would be different, but Terence has made it really clear that that's the fight that he wants, and he's probably going to hang them up after that. There's not really a big fight for him that really interests him. The Boots fight, obviously that's a very competitive fight if you're thinking about Terence Crawford. Closer to his natural weight class, around 154 or 147, but he's willing to make that jump, go from 154 where he didn't look amazing at 54, got the job done, but let's all be honest, and out of respect for Terence Crawford, let's keep it real, he didn't look amazing. It's hard when you have that performance, that stellar performance against Errol Spence, where it was basically 1A and 1B on the pound for pound rankings, and he went in there and dominated the fight. So you guys, everybody has to remember that it's hard to beat that kind of performance, because we all thought that was going to be a competitive fight, or at least a more competitive fight, which it wasn't. We saw Terence Crawford go in there, dismantle Errol Spence from the second round on, and basically, that fight could have gotten stopped earlier, but it didn't. But Terence Crawford in his outing against Israel Madrimov didn't look as dominant. We saw why there are weight classes for a reason. We saw why styles make fights at the same time, and why, a well-decorated amateur background kind of overshadows maybe a lack of experience in the pros. And that's what we saw with Madrimov. We saw a guy that maybe didn't have a lot of experience in the pros, but his amateur record, leading up to his professional career is what really, I want to say, played a role in his success against Terence Crawford. Or, people are saying that there was a lack thereof of success, but I would argue, he made that fight very close, arguably won the fight against Terence Crawford. So you guys gotta remember that that wasn't an easy fight for Bud, and to think that, he would have to not only jump to one weight class past 54, but another one to fight Canelo Alvarez. You can't help but think about that physical adjustment that he'd have to make against a guy like Canelo Alvarez, because it's not just any 168 pounder in the world. And the reason why I'm such a big advocate for this fight is because for Canelo, I think it does more for his resume than maybe even Benavidez does. Because although Benavidez is the fight that I want to see, we're not gonna get it. So you might as well look at it like, well, we still have to see how Benavidez is, the remainder of his career pans out, because he could very well, become a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he could also not really accomplish anything else. And I'm not trying to be like, I don't want to be that negative guy, but that's the reality of the sport. We've seen boxers, like Adrian Broner, great talent, but nothing really becomes of it. He got a big shot against Manny Pacquiao, but other than that, you see him now when he's fighting Blair Cobbs at 140. It's just like not, things don't always go the way you plan in the sport of boxing. That's the reality of it. So going back to, Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, that's the fight that is most realistic. I don't think Benavidez and Canelo are going to fight, because for Canelo, I think the reason why he's more open to the Terence Crawford fight now than he ever was is because he's not going to have to face Benavidez. He's going to face a smaller opponent. Even though he's good, I think he has he has that sense of, I'm way bigger than this guy, and he wants to come and challenge me, so maybe I can get away with that. And it's a risky fight as well. He's not just facing any guy coming up in weight. It's Terrence Bud Crawford, arguably the number 1, number 2, number 3 pound for pound fighter after maybe Usyk and Inoue, who just fought, had an interesting performance. It was kind of competitive. It wasn't really competitive. You could see how Inoue begins to impose his will and how the fight slowly breaks down in his favor, and his game plan always ends up just throwing everything out the window and saying, okay, I've taken all your punches, let's fight now. That's how Inoue fights usually play out, and he did his thing, got the stoppage win, and I think that, he's fighting, more fights. He's a more active fighter in comparison to Terrence Crawford and Usyk, so you could argue he's number 1, then maybe Usyk's number 2 after beating Fury, and then Terrence Crawford beating Earl Spence Jr. and then Majmov. You could put him anywhere in the top 3, but either way, to see Canelo Alvarez and Teofimo Lopez working out together, that's interesting. I think that'd be a good idea it can't hurt Teofimo Lopez to be hanging around greatness, getting tips from a guy like Canelo Alvarez, because who knows how much longer realistically Canelo's going to be around, and Teofimo with, so much potential still, despite everything he's accomplished, so many big fights for him right now. It's going to be exciting to see it if he does end up joining Canelo's camp in Eddie Reynoso. It's going to be a good team and environment for him. I think he's going to learn a lot. He's going to execute a lot more with a guy like Canelo on your shoulder. There's a little bit more pressure and a sense of urgency, and obviously pressure either bursts pipes or makes diamonds, right? So we're gonna see Teofimo inevitably carry that Canelo stable on his back as well, and he's going to be representing Canelo in a way, and Eddie Reynoso, so he's going to have more pressure than he's ever had, and I think that will show you who the kind of fighter that Teofimo Lopez is, because when Teo, I always say this about Teo, like if you don't give him an exciting name, he's gonna underperform because he's not that motivated to train. And I'm not saying like he doesn't work out, this and that. I know he works out. He's one of the most athletic fighters in the sport right now. But in order to, tailor make your training camp and style and strategy for your opponent, I feel like you got to get excited, at least in Teofimo Lopez's case, because you got Josh Taylor, Lomachenko, Richard Comey, like all these guys he was excited to fight, and then we got the best version of him. You have guys like Sandor Martin, Jermaine Ortiz. Those are the more questionable performances that he's had, because nobody like really doubted him in those fights. And when you don't doubt somebody, you're naturally gonna feel maybe a little bit overconfident and overlook somebody, even if that's not your intention, So I think this is a good move for Teofimo Lopez. I'm happy to see him with Eddie Reynoso and Canelo, Team Canelo. Let's see if it turns into something, bigger, that they, start training together. He joins their training camp, and then, Teo Senior, steps aside and lets Reynoso be the head trainer. We'll see what happens, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next Nabs Boxing video. Thank you guys, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace. That's going to do it for another Nabs Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.